new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. Yep, it's that time again.
Yes, sir.
As the month of August is rolling down, summer is coming to an end. Maybe not by the calendar, but by the
and definitely not by the temperature.
No, or the temperature. Kids are going back to school, and that's why we had our fun back to school special last week. And this is a little bit of a continuation as we do these 3 animated films in a row. Before we get to some back to some adult fare and definitely some adult fare in Halloween Horrors Month, but no, definitely not temperature wise. I mean, it's still hot as balls in Texas, and
yes,
and it thundered over here. I don't know if it really rained over here tonight, but even if it did rain, it didn't rain enough to.
Yeah, it just rained a little bit.
I never really peeked outside. I was too afraid to see something I haven't seen in months.
Yeah, like what is this?
It might have shocked me.
Yeah.
I was thinking it feels like more the last few times it has rained, we've lost power. So I was like, man, no, let's not lose power the night we're supposed to do a podcast.
For real.
It's like, that would not be bueno. So, it's like.
Especially with that thunder, you just never know.
I know. I even did a double take. I'm like, what is that? I was making dinner and I'm like, is that thunder? And I hear it again. I'm like, holy shit, it is thunder.
You're like, someone playing music with their loud subwoofer. That's
an unfamiliar sound. Well, yeah, like there is this car that goes by pretty often down the street with subwoofers playing. I thought maybe it was that guy, and they go visit a house down the street that I'm wondering what is sold out of that house, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
because quite often people pull up to the house and they're there about 5 minutes and then they're gone, and I've seen it several times. So it makes you wonder what they're selling in that house.
Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Got to catch them all, baby.
Pokemon cards with a little dust on them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like pretty obvious. It's like,
yeah.
Somebody's dealing something out of this house. And
one day you'll see a bunch of unmarked cop cars. It happened in my neighborhood once. I was in high school. They pulled like barrels of it, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like yesterday. I mean, I can say this because no one knows where I live, but except for you and people that really know me. But like, Waverly was outside riding her bike because we have had the evenings. It's been a little bit breezy, So we went to go ride our bike last night, and we're going down the street, and this couple pulls up, and they look like meth heads. And they go into the house, and they come out 5 minutes later. It's like, what were you doing at this house? It's pretty obvious,
I've seen Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
It's the blue stuff, man.
That's right. So anyway, but otherwise, it's been another week and a good week overall. I'm ready for Friday tomorrow. I'm ready for the week to end and kind of a last free weekend with school starting. Not much going on this weekend, and it'll get busy soon enough. Middle son playing baseball and school starting, and I don't know. In some ways, I'm ready for routine again. Kids definitely need to go back to school. I don't know about yours, but mine are wound up through the roof.
For real.
They need structure.
Yeah, it's like it's so hot outside. I don't want, I let them have outside time, and I'm like, all right, you got to come in. You guys are like melting out there, get some water. And they want to bring their bicycles inside, my younger ones. And I'm like, no.
That's not how this works.
Yeah. It's like, those are not meant for the inside.
That's better than the time when it was so hot outside that Michael literally asked me, can I bring the lawnmower through the house? I'm like, can you what? I was like, no.
No.
He literally asked if he could bring the lawnmower through the house. I was like, no, you walk your ass through the side of the house and go through the fence.
Is it new in the box? And no. Then no.
I still, to this day, cannot believe he asked me that. I was like, are you serious? And then I looked at his face and I realized he was serious. I was like, wow.
Wow.
No.
Like, I thought this was a joke.
Really, no. Bill Cosby might have turned into a creep, but sometimes his show about the things kids say is very true.
They say the darndest things, man.
Yeah, they say some
they
stuff.
Do.
Just like, what? Like my little baby girl, I said, ready to go back to school? And she goes, yeah, and I think I've decided I'm going to be good, but if somebody messes with me, I'm not going to be nice. I was like, okay.
Wow. Okay.
To say. Well, she had her back to school last week, and she saw the kid. She goes, Dad, do you see that kid over there? I'm like, yeah. She goes, he's the one that made fun of my dress. I don't like him. And the look in her eyes said it all. she could have probably ripped his head off right there.
I believe it. I think she's got it in her.
Ooh, she's definitely the reason I'm getting gray hair. Could end up like you over there soon enough, bald as can be.
That's hey man, let's join. We'll share techniques.
But,
yeah,
man. So, but yeah, almost end of August here. We're rolling to September. Your birthday movie coming in a couple weeks, and a week after next, actually. Yeah, so we got one in between. And man, how old are you turning?
I will be 37.
Oh man, so we got. So you and me, man, we're gonna have to do. Dude, we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to have 2 big parties in 3 years.
We are, man.
My 50th and your 40th.
2 milestones.
It would be too much to do them together because that'd be way too many people.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna have 2 rocking parties, man. We'll bookend it August and September. Go with a bang,
Yes.
That's what we'll do. All out. Strippers, cerveza, and yeah.
Midget wrestling. Yeah.
Midget wrestling, mud wrestling, you name it. Have it. It'll be the end all of parties.
Yes, the party of parties.
No, but yeah, don't tell Jackie I said that. But
no.
We'll have a regular family party, and that'll be the secret guy party.
Yeah. We have to have a front. You got to have the front.
But man, let's do this. Let's get into some podcasting today. We've got it's a mostly Star Wars episode. I mean, we'll just go with that.
Definitely.
But Star Wars is our jam. And I get people all the time. What's the name of your podcast? Rebel Radio podcast. I go, oh, is it a Star Wars podcast? No, but it is definitely inspired by Star Wars, heavily influenced by Star Wars, because that's probably, our most favorite thing in the world.
Yes.
As far as genres go and fandoms, and so there's no doubt about that. And I love talking Star Wars, always have, always will. And we haven't done a Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi. So we sort of missed out on the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones last year, not really on purpose, kind of more by accident. And and because we had the 300th episode Return of the Jedi coming up, so we're like, we're definitely doing Return of the Jedi over Attack of the Clones. So Star Wars: The Clone Wars today here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about some things we watched first, and then we're going to dive into Ahsoka, and then we're going to look back at where Ahsoka started with the Star Wars: The Clone Wars movies. So I did not watch too much new this week, except for I did watch Elemental since you watched it last week, and man, I'm not going to be as harsh on you've been a little harsh on movies lately, a little harsh.
Maybe so.
You've been on like a spill lately where you're just like, fuck Splinter and his new origin, and fuck Barbie, and I would fuck Barbie, but
different context.
And you're like, fuck Elemental, man. Pixar, you didn't say that, but I do agree it's been done before. It doesn't break any new ground.
Yeah, it feels too familiar, too safe.
But overall, though, I thought it was fine. I mean, I thought it was really well animated. I thought it was handled.
It is well animated.
Very colorful, very nicely. I thought the voice work was good. I thought it was a good story, even though kind of familiar and done before. But overall, I enjoyed it. The kids watched it. They liked it. Michael didn't really watch it. Just the little ones did. And they thought it was good. And, it's Pixar. You can rarely go wrong with Disney and Pixar. Most of the stuff they do is really solid. There's been a few I haven't cared for as much, like Strange Worlds wasn't as good, even though I was hoping it would be. And I thought Turning Red was just okay. But I thought Elemental was pretty good. I think, like you said, I think it just suffers from kind of familiarity. It's been done before. But a good little Disney movie. Not the worst thing ever, not the best. It was entertaining for an evening, afternoon to watch. And so I'm not as harsh on it as you. I still, still can't forgive you for Dog and Ninja Turtles. But,
I said it was enjoyable.
It was awesome. And other than that, man, I'm trying to think what else I really watched new this week. Man, not much. I've watched just a lot of old stuff, man. I watched The Flash again just because I felt like watching it. And,
Okay.
I'm starting to like it a little bit more every time I watch it. I guess the second time, it's like the first time I saw it in theaters, I liked it. When I saw it the second time at home, I was like, okay, I can see some flaws in it. But then the third time I watched it, I kind of just forgave the flaws and thing and just really enjoyed it again. I don't know. I think it's a fun movie. It's cool to see. I feel like Keaton got screwed on his Batman comeback, though.
Yeah.
Man, it sucks because it's
unfortunately,
it's just not fair, And we could have had a Batman Beyond movie. God damn it, we could have.
Yeah, man, that would have been cool to see in theaters.
And I can't help but think if it all goes back to this Warner Brothers just not rushing Justice League. When after Snyder's took his break from his daughter's untimely death.
Yeah.
They just give him time to finish the movie. Okay, you know what? We'll push it back. It's cool, But they had to bring in Whedon and rush it, and I really think that's where it started going downhill. Was with that release, and because it was too close to the heels of Avengers and the popularity of those movies, and you expect a big bag superhero Justice League, and it wasn't what they expected.
Yeah, because they rushed it. Yeah. Marvel had taken how many years? They took right. 4 or 5 years until they got everybody together.
And then you go and you see the Snyder cut of Justice League, and you realize, man, this could have really been something if it had been put out like this as a 2-parter in theaters, and I think people would have appreciated it more. So, it's unfortunate, and I guess we just have to accept we have to move on to James Gunn's new DCU here in a couple of years, and we can go from there. And I think it bugs me the most just wanting more for Michael Keaton's comeback. That's just what irritates me.
Yeah.
Really, hoping. And by the time they got around to even possibly doing that again, I think Keaton's just going to age out and be too old. He's almost 70 now, So,
yeah, he's like right there where you'd have to act like right now,
So it's unfortunate. But other than that, man, that's really all I can think of. I've really watched. It was new this week was Elemental. I was kind of slack this week a little bit.
Okay. Well, I watched
besides Ahsoka, of course.
Yeah, besides Ahsoka, I liked the Invincible series, and so I went ahead and watched the prequel episode. Little movie, Adam Eve.
It was weird. My boss watches that show. He asked me if I had seen it. And I'm like, no. So he knows I watch most of the superhero stuff. I said I watched most of the first episode, and I just never went back. And then I just saw it as a strange. I just didn't picture him sitting down watching that.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he saw the brutalness of the animation and thought it was interesting. That's what I did. I saw the brutalness of the animation and just saw it through. And it's the same way with this movie too. But it's I liked it. It's in the same vein as the Invincible series. You still have the same bloody type animation, kind of brutal, and her origin story is definitely interesting, and definitely adds more to her character. So if you're interested in watching it, I definitely give it a watch and check it out. Another thing I did is get caught up on my Babylon 5.
Shit.
Oh yeah, I am like halfway through season 2. So I'm chugging along. Hopefully I can be on season 3 next week. Yeah.
And I realized don't watch the road home yet. It is a bit. There are some things you'll need to know. So it's you could watch it spoiler free, but there's a few tidbits here that might be either a little not so much confusing, but if you're pay attention to really things, it could spoil a few things. So I would wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably watch it after the Shadow War is done. So halfway through season 4, you'd be able to watch it.
Okay. Good call. I almost bought it today. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to, because I had a back payment from work and I wasn't expecting it. And I was like, whoa, okay. I was like, I'm going to get some extra stuff today that I've been, I got unfortunately I spent it on stuff that I needed, not stuff that I wanted necessarily, but I was going to get to that. So I'll hold off on it.
Yeah, and by the time you get ready to watch it, it's expected to show up on HBO Max eventually once it's through with its streaming and and video sales. So
And then other than that, I did watch No Hard Feelings. The wife wanted to watch something, and she wanted to see a comedy. And I was like, you know what? I was like, it's new to buy. We were both going to go to the movie theater and watch it anyways. So I went ahead and bought it. I usually don't. It is funny. I was actually surprised.
You actually bought it on one of your accounts?
I bought it, yeah.
Right, I might watch it then.
Yeah.
Because I kind of was like, me in comedies, I'm kind of picky, but I'm like, man, Jennifer Lawrence doing the naughty bit thing. Okay, I kind of want to watch this.
And she shows everything in the movie. I'll just let you know.
It's a stand-in, though.
Oh, it's a stand-in?
I've heard that.
Maybe she just goes topless then.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's I don't know how you would do a stand-in. Maybe similar to what they did with Under the Skin with ScarJo. But I think on Under the Skin, you don't see her face. And in this one, it's Jennifer Lawrence's face. So it's like...
Okay. So maybe she did. I had heard that there was some controversy, whether it was real or not. So,
Okay. I'm going to have to research that. But yeah, I was just like... And it's in a funny bit too. So it's interesting. But no, I feel like it's kind of similar. The whole story is kind of similar to She's All That, and it reminds me a little bit of that, but obviously a different type of premise. But it's a good movie. I think it surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be that good, but it is. And it was funny seeing Matthew Broderick again on screen. I hadn't seen him in a movie in a while. He just kind of has a small part. He plays the dad. He doesn't have a huge role in it, really, as far as like in the movie for a lot of time. So he's just in the movie for the parts that he absolutely needs to be in there, and the rest is handed off to Jennifer Lawrence and the boy who kind of looks like Linguini from Ratatouille. It's funny. The more I looked at him, I was like, he looks like Linguini from Ratatouille. And Jackie's like, oh my God, he does. But yeah, I watched that, and that's about it, other than Ahsoka.
Yeah, man. Well, all right. Well, let's get into that. Ahsoka, man. You know what? Let's come back to Ahsoka. Let's do a real brief news, and then we're going to tie. That way, we can tie Ahsoka and the Clone Wars together.
Okay.
There's not a lot of news. One is Star Wars related, so it'll be a perfect lead-in. Did you see the trailer for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon coming in?
Yes. Oh my God, it looks badass.
It looks like Star Wars, Mad Max, Dune, Star Trek, all these sci-fi things together.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm like, God, I want to watch this because it looks freaking cool. I mean, it's like, apparently word was that it was some sort of Star Wars script that he wrote back before Disney even bought Lucasfilm, because I guess George has asked him to write a script, and he reworked it over the years and tried to sell the film to Warner Brothers, and they said no. And now it went to Netflix, and but it looks awesome. It looks like a Snyder film, the slow motion. It just looks freaking cool. I can't wait. It's definitely going to be watching over Christmas weekend when it comes out on Netflix for sure.
No, I think it's definitely worth a watch, and probably a rewatch too.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of movie.
And for people that don't know, it's going to be 2 parts. Part 1 is December 22nd. And Part 2 will be on Netflix in April. And Zack Snyder saying they're not sequels or anything. It's just it's a long film. I mean, Netflix basically let him make the movie he wanted without having to cut it. So it's 2 parts of the film put together. So That's going to be out on Netflix in December. And second, the other news is the popular Star Wars game Dark Forces is getting a remaster. And it's going to be out on PlayStation, Xbox, all the systems. It'll be out later this year or early next year, they're saying. They haven't given a release date, but it says sometime in 2024. So Star Wars Dark Forces with Kyle Katarn in it. So I remember that game. I don't remember playing it all the way through, but I do remember it. So, but that's really all the news, man. The strike is still going on. Things are still slow. It just is what it is. I even dig really hard. I'm like, I couldn't find anything to talk about this week.
Yeah.
It's like, but
yeah, I don't think there's anything that really has gone on a lot.
Right before we hit the news, it looks like, speaking of Dune, it looks like Dune Part 2 is getting delayed till March because these studios are just worried because they can't have the actors promoting the films. So one of the few fall films that I didn't watch the first one on the big screen because it came out during COVID, but I was probably going to go try to see the second one on the big screen, and one less movie to see this fall, as it looks like it's going to be pushed back to March. So
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate as things continue to drag out with these strikes. But that leads us into Star Wars Ahsoka, the long-awaited premiere spinoff on Disney Plus. It finally came. I mean, we've been talking about this for a couple of years. I remember about a year and a half ago, it seemed like the first behind-the-scenes shots hit. We're looking for this, and it just felt like this was. It took a long time to finally get here, and it finally hit this week on Disney Plus with a 2-part premiere on Tuesday night. And for Star Wars Rebels fans, it was everything I would want it to be. I mean, it's basically Rebels Season 5. And
yes.
And it's fantastic for it. Dave Filoni, it just continues to do awesome with what he does with Star Wars. And it was just 2 really exciting episodes. I read people say it was slow. I'm like, what do you mean it was slow? It had lots of fights and it had lots of action. I mean, you can't go balls to the walls action. You've got to have some exposition and story set up.
Exactly.
It was nowhere. Andor was slow.
Yes,
I mean,
Andor was slow.
I'm sorry. I can appreciate Andor for what it was, but Ahsoka is my Star Wars. That's what I want. I want lightsaber fights. I want intrigue and espionage and excitement and wittiness and I don't want.
And Dave Filoni's fucking cowboy hat. That's what I want.
That's right.
I want his cowboy hat on his head.
But
that's where he gets his power.
That's true.
He just channels it through that cowboy hat.
I'm a huge fan of Rebels, man, and just to see Sabine and Hera and come to life on the big screen, and Chopper, and let's not leave out our droid Chopper. I mean, and how good are they? I mean, like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Hera, she has the smirk down, the looks, everything, just like Rosario Dawson does with Ahsoka. The same for the girl, I don't know her name, that plays Sabine. I mean, she just has the little lip movement, the twitch that she has, that smirk in her face.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Filoni and the crew did such a good job casting these people and bringing them to life. And then after 2 episodes, I realized, man, I only have 6 more episodes, because I could after 2 episodes, I could watch this forever. Just seeing these characters come back to life. And of course, talk about the story a bit. We know, Ahsoka continues her quest, as she's heard rumors that Thrawn is still out there, and possibly, if Thrawn is out there, she believes that maybe Ezra is too. And so she's searching for a map that could show the location of where Thrawn is. And with that, we're introduced to a couple of, I wouldn't call them Sith, but Darksiders, played by the late Ray Stevenson, sorry.
Ray Stevenson.
And another female actor.
She's a Ukrainian.
Ukraine, with very cool oranges lightsabers, and we're introduced to them early on. And they're doing the work for Morgan, who we were introduced to during Mandalorian Season 2, who was a magistrate, who turns out she's a Night Sister. Whoa, that was like, holy shit. She's a Night Sister. And she's hiring them to find Thrawn for her also, because she wants to bring him back so that basically they can reform the Empire. I mean, it's the ultimate goal of all this. And it's set up perfectly. It's set up really cool. Ray Stevenson's character is a little bit cautious. I mean, he's a little bit worried about Ahsoka being involved. So that shows you that the respect that she has throughout the years of being this floating Jedi warrior, that she was. And even though she doesn't call herself Jedi anymore, he's a little concerned because Ahsoka's a badass.
Oh, yeah.
It was just, there was a lot to take in the first 2 episodes. I really liked the speeder sequence with Sabine as she's being chased by it was so cool to see. How cool was it to see a live version of Lothal, this planet that we visited constantly through 4 seasons of Rebels, and there it is on our televisions
with Tom Clancy.
Yeah, or no, Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, sorry, Tom Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, man, he's just showing up everywhere. John Wick, and now he's in Star Wars. I mean,
well, SpongeBob stopped airing, so he's got to do something now.
That's right, man. Dude, and that was cool. That was kind of unexpected. Great lightsaber fights throughout the first 2 episodes in it.
Yeah.
We get some hints that after Rebels, that Ahsoka must have tried to train Sabine, who we knew she was a bit force sensitive from her use of the Darksaber and her connection to the Night Sisters in Rebels. We knew that already, but it looks like Ahsoka must have tried to train her at some point, but it just wasn't working out through her stubbornness, and they seemingly parted ways at some point after the events of last time we saw them was after the Battle of Endor in the Rebels, and they were like, we're going to find Ezra together. But somewhere after that, they must have had a falling out. They must have gave up on finding Ezra, and Sabine went her way, and Ahsoka went her way, and now they've been brought together. And we get to see Sabine use her lightsaber a little bit, which we find out was Ezra's lightsaber in the second episode. And I thought that was really cool. And I can't help. Do you think it's possible the Inquisitor is Ezra?
Man, that would be nuts.
Okay, the way he holds his lightsaber pointed downward, and Ahsoka even looks at him like, she gives him a look. I was like, if Dooku can mask his dark side against the Jedi Council, why is it not possible Ezra can't mask it?
Yeah, and he had it.
Yeah.
He had the dark side in him.
Ezra could mask it against, if he hasn't been taken over, if it's part of his plan, why can't he mask it against those dark sides?
Dude, that would be a badass story.
I mean, I can't help but think the way he held his lightsaber, the way he moved, I mean, it just, I'm wondering, man, you know.
No, that's fair. And, I mean, now that you mention it,
I know there's an official
it makes sense.
Member for the Inquisitor, but, you know, that doesn't mean anything. They do things like that to throw people off all the time, you know.
And that would be like one of the perfect things to throw into like a finale.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy.
What did you think, man? I'm rumbling on. I mean, through the first two episodes.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I like the lightsaber fights. I like the little rebelness that Sabine showed. I like the little, comical, Sabine, run. And then she doesn't show up like Captain America in the first Avenger. And they're like, he's like, well, I'll just accept this award on their behalf. But yeah, there's definitely more Ahsoka to be wanted now. And it's so funny how she started off as this unwanted character after she appeared in the movie that we are going to talk about today. And now she's a fan favorite, like we want more Ahsoka, we want a series. And I think we're going to get exactly what we wanted following these two episodes.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like I said, the Star Wars TV shows that we've gotten since Disney Plus became a thing have been, all of them I've liked something about them. I mean, I've enjoyed The Mandalorian a lot, and I know people knocked the Book of Boba Fett, but I was fine with it. I never overthink these characters too much. I'm just glad to revisit this world, and if they expand on Boba Fett's mysteriousness, so what, I mean, because Boba Fett got a lot of his lore from being, the action figure that was a giveaway, that it wasn't a rocket firing thing. And then he shows up in the movies and he became a big deal because he's only in there a few seconds. And but it's okay to tell more stories just because it's not what you wanted. And then Obi-Wan, was exciting. I think it felt a little forced, like they felt like they had to tell this Obi-Wan story, and they kind of forced him into conflict with Darth Vader again, and maybe it took a little bit away from him seeing Darth Vader on the Death Star later on. I could see how people could say that, but I enjoyed it for what it was. The final episode was really awesome. Andor was good, even though very slow to start. Not my favorite of the shows. The animated stuff has all been really good. The Bad Batch, Rebels, all that stuff. But Ahsoka was just something I've been looking forward to the most of all of them, I think, even more than the Mandalorian shows. I mean, I think I enjoyed the Mandalorian, but I didn't know what to expect of it. Then when I heard they announced Rosario Dawson was playing a live action Ahsoka, and we were going to get our Mandalorian season 2, it really lifted Mandalorian for me more, and because it's a character that, as we're going to talk about in a minute, that's become a huge fan favorite and has grown on us over the years. And so it's super exciting to have Ahsoka, or Rebel Season 5, as people are jokingly call it. Because essentially that's what it is. And I can't wait for these other 6 episodes, and I'm going to enjoy them each week. And hopefully it doesn't go by too fast, because it's like...
Got to enjoy it. Take some time to enjoy it and try and, let it, space out and as much as possible. Because before you know it, it'll be over, and we got to wait another couple of years for something. Yeah,
and to see how it plays out. And it's just... Dave Filoni is and Jon Favreau just continue to do the Lord's work with these Star Wars shows and giving us the characters we want. And I'm looking forward to more Ahsoka. But now let's let's look back on where we got our start with Ahsoka. So they announced in 2006 or so or seven that they were making a Star Wars animated series after Revenge of the Sith came out. And it was going to air on the Cartoon Network, and it was going to be called The Clone Wars, and it was going to tell the stories about the Clone Wars in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And as time went along, George decided that, you know what, let's how about a theatrical release for the pilot film? Originally, these episodes were going to be like 3 or 4 episodes that were going to air separately. But then George said, you know, these could work as a movie, and he made a deal with Warner Brothers to distribute the film, which was interesting that it wasn't Fox at the time. And but Warner Brothers, I think, has a majority stake in Cartoon Network, if I remember right, was part of it. And so they decided to put out a theatrical film called Star Wars The Clone Wars in August of 2008, which we saw together with your wife and my ex-wife carrying burritos in foil underneath their shirts into the movie theater. I'll never forget that. And you and me are shaking our heads at them like, they're embarrassing us. They're embarrassing us. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my wife was pregnant at the time. And so, you know, that was with our first child. So, you know, she was always hungry. And
that's just how it is.
So, you know, we went and saw the Clone Wars film. And I think if I remember correctly, like the next week after it aired, they aired like 2 episodes. And then you had to wait a few months till the season started.
Yeah.
They said it was like a whole big advertising thing. Go see the movie in theaters now. We're going to show you 2 episodes, but then the real show's not going to premiere until like January, if I remember correct, or something like that. Maybe it was November. It was a couple months later, you know. And so they had this whole idea to market the show that way. And the film wasn't widely successful at the box office. It wasn't like other Star Wars films that are making gazillion dollars, but
pretty good for what it costs.
Film, it made $35 million its opening weekend, which is good for a Star Wars for any animated film.
And it was only $8 million to make.
Yeah, and it ended up making like $58 million, I think, domestically, and like 100-something million worldwide. So it made its money back. And so the Clone Wars being the most, and the Clone Wars itself was the most expensive animated television show ever made at that point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure by now. I'm sure there's some that's passed it up, or even current Disney stuff. But at the time, Clone Wars was rumored to cost almost $1 million an episode. And so essentially, the story is pretty simple. Jabba the Hutt's son has been captured. So it's all.
What you mean, Stinky?
Stinky. It's all been set up. It's been set up by the Republic, or the which we don't know is, the world doesn't know they're an evil Republic yet. Well, they kind of do, right? I'm trying to think. My continuity of Star Wars is all fucked up.
Well, it's set up between the Chancellor and the Separatists.
Sidious and the Separatists.
Yeah.
So they set it up. They want to make it look like the Republic did it. The Jedi did it. Blame them. The Jedi, they say, no, we have to rescue Stinky in time so that Jabba takes our favor and we have the Hutt's favors in the war. So they ask Anakin to go and rescue Jabba's son, and they're give him a new Padawan. And Yoda gives him a new Padawan, who at first Anakin thinks that it's Obi-Wan's new Padawan, and nope, it sure is Anakin. And that's when we're introduced to the very young Ahsoka Tano. So essentially, they go on this adventure to rescue Stinky, Jabba the Hutt's son, and Jabba finds out that he was double crossed by his super flamboyant uncle. And that which pisses Jabba off, and Jabba's mad that the Separatists would do this. And along the way, we meet Asaj Ventress, and we get Count Dooku in there also fighting against the Jedi, and the final voice work of Christopher Lee in this film. Because he would pass away a few years later, but and I think before, I don't know why he did. I guess he just didn't want to do voice work. He said he would do the movie, but he didn't do the animated series. Is what it was.
It would cost way too much to do.
Yeah, it would cost him too much.
And Samuel L. Jackson came back too.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson came back for the movie, but not for the TV show also. And so they came back and did some great voice work, and we basically get a rousing, fun Star Wars adventure told over an hour and a half, and you can kind of see where the episodes would have been separated.
Yes, it's like the acts are very definitive.
Right. But yet it tells a good story, and it's fun. And I remember walking out of the theaters and enjoying this movie and having a blast with it and being super excited for the animated series. What I did not know was that, here 15 years later, how big of a character Ahsoka Tano would become. She's right up there with Harley Quinn as arguably the 2 most popular animated characters that were created for an animated series that spawned into comic books and novels and action figures and live action. And I think there's not much debate on that as far as those two characters. So in this movie, she is young, spirited, feisty, just like Anakin. She's witty, she's daring, but yet cautious because she is a Padawan. But yet she's daring enough that Anakin realizes, like, yeah, you're going to be all right, you know.
Yeah, she definitely earns his respect.
Yes, and it's such a different version of Ahsoka compared to what we have now, where this adventure began. And it's amazing to think about where this movie started and throughout her development towards we get to the end of Clone Wars, when those final episodes that take place during Revenge of the Sith, but she's kicked out of the Jedi Order for being framed, to see her become the Fulcrum in Rebels. And she's still called the Fulcrum in the new Ahsoka show. Did you notice that nod too?
Yeah.
Just to see how far she's come, the maturity of her. It's almost like we grew up with a fake character, literally. You know?
Yeah.
And it all started in this film. What were your initial thoughts on the Clone Wars movie and going into the show and from the movie theater?
I mean, I liked it, but there's so many silly little tropes in there. Like, obviously it's a cartoon, so take that in hand as well. But the nicknames, there's so many nicknames: Sky Guy, Squints, Stinky,
Snippy.
Yeah, Snippy. And so it's like it's hard to take it as a serious film. Because of all that, but there's definitely some serious elements in there and some stuff that I wonder if they'll bring up in the future. Like, are we going to see Jabba the Hutt's son, later on? He wasn't mentioned in the Book of Boba Fett when all the Hutts, came in. So it makes me wonder. But yeah, no, I, remember seeing what it turned into and what it spawned is now gives it a different light. I feel like it's a classic, as far as like the animated Star Wars stuff goes, which, is not going to be hard to go to the top of that list, I feel like. Right. But it's, I wonder why Hayden Christensen didn't come back, but I guess they just wanted to get some of the voice actors in there from the series. Maybe that's why. I
think that's a fair statement. It's to see where it was and where it came. You can tell that the animation's still a little rough at times. They're still finding their way. I think Filoni himself was still learning how to develop animated series. You got to remember too, this is under the Warner Brothers banner, not the Disney banner. And I say that because you can tell the Lost season and the final season that were under Disney the Lost season aired on Netflix, but that was done by Disney, and then the final season on Disney Plus are a little more mature, and I think maybe it has something to do with it. But you're right. Maybe they were finding their way still. Like, we're making this for kids. Let's make jokes and stuff. But as it went along, though, the jokes got less and less because they realized, like, kids aren't watching this. People from age 25 to 45 are watching this. People grew up with Star Wars.
Yes.
And that's fair to say that maybe Filoni was still getting his feet wet even with these early episodes. But you can see the brilliance in it, too, and where it was going. In some ways, is it fair to say that Clone Wars is the closest in vision to what George Lucas originally had for Star Wars, meaning George Lucas was a huge movie serial guy. He talked about all the time going to the theater and watching Zorro and Captain America, the movie serials, Flash Gordon. And that's what he based Star Wars on. And Clone Wars definitely is movie serial style.
Yeah, especially with the narration. Look at the narration. It's narrated like a movie serial. Yeah. And it, because the tone is set with that, it flows like a movie serial as well. And I like, you make this point all the time that it definitely flushes out that connection between Anakin and the Chancellor. Yeah. Because he goes to him all the time whenever he has an issue or a question, and he develops that trust within him. And you can see how Anakin grew closer and closer and closer to him and confided in him a lot. And it makes that transition where he goes from, Jedi Council golden boy to Darth Vader, Yeah, so it makes a whole lot more sense watching
Clone Wars
this.
definitely makes Revenge of the Sith better. Yeah. No, for sure. Not only that, on the flip side of that, even Count Dooku and the way he's twisted towards the dark side more and more by Sidious.
Yeah.
And I rewatched a couple of the episodes of Tales of the Jedi, which we get some of Dooku's backstory, and you realize like Dooku wasn't necessarily an evil man to begin with. He was slowly twisted and twisted and twisted more and more. And by the time we get to the beginning of Clone Wars, though, he's still doing the bidding of Darth Sidious and becoming more evil as it goes along. Of course, this takes place after Attack of the Clones, in which we already saw him be evil. But I think it develops his character more, too, to get to that point to be in Revenge of the Sith when he's killed by Anakin. And that's a great thing about Clone Wars. It fleshes out these characters. I think Clone Wars made Obi-Wan better, too, because you got to see him be a general.
That's where
throughout the movie and throughout the episodes.
The negotiator.
Yeah.
You see where he gets the nicknames from now. And so you see him as a general. He's not just, okay, you're going to lead this army. And, okay, he's just the general now. It's like, no, he became it because of the multiple battles and exploits that he had to run and operate in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. It gives so much more meaning to Princess Leia's General Kenobi when she calls him that. You know why now. And I think that's the great thing about Clone Wars is that it does do that. Exactly what you said. Fleshes out these characters more and more, makes them better. And Filoni, as he goes along on this show, and he gets better and better with writing these characters and telling their stories too. And it's fair to say that the movie is a big pilot episode where they didn't quite have all the kinks worked out yet. But it's still a fun movie. It's a fun animated film. It's a good one to watch. It's enjoyable. It has some great lightsaber fights in it.
Oh, definitely.
Things like that. It has some really great sequences too. Like there's stuff that if they were doing, we talked about this before with animated films, that if you did live action would cost a ton of money. Like when the spider droids are going up the side of the wall and Anakin and Ahsoka are going with them. Live action, that would cost $1 gazillion. But in animation, it's a really cool sequence.
Yeah, you can do that with animation. I mean, obviously the $8 million bill is probably it probably costs like $500 million to do something like that, especially with the amount of CGI that they would need, especially with the force field, the first battle, the second battle, maybe not so much the third act and the fourth, but
the CGI of Jabba the Hutt's son would cost a fortune in a film. It does beg the question, though, what happened to Jabba the Hutt's son? Because we see Jabba in A New Hope, of course, and then he gets murdered killed in Return of the Jedi. Like, where was his son all this time?
Yeah.
Then the Book of Boba Fett, Fett takes over the Hutt's organizations and stuff. And where was Jabba's son? Maybe he's out. Maybe just, maybe he grew up, be a good kid, decided I don't want any part of this crime shit. I'm just going to go be a Hutt in my
maybe he did
home on Tatooine somewhere.
He started his own business, Pizza the Hutt.
That's it, Pizza.
Yes,
the Hutt. Or maybe he just runs a nightclub with some cute Twilight dancers or something.
It's true.
I mean, maybe he's
Sunglass Hutt.
Yeah, maybe after Return of the Jedi, he inherited all his dad's money, and now he's just living a little good life.
Maybe he is, one of those rich kids that wears, a sweater vest.
Yeah, because Jabba obviously had money if he's paying Boba Fett to capture Han Solo and paying people rewards. I mean,
Yeah, enslaving Princess Leia, making her wear a gold bikini, making Luke fight the Rancor, throwing Twi'leks.
Yeah, he owned a Rancor. Yeah. That had to cost a bit just to feed, Yeah,
he had to pay Danny Trejo to train him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that was Boba Fett. That was after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the short, fat guy who trained his Rancor.
Oh, that's right. And he cried.
Yeah, he cried
whenever.
He cried like a little bitch because Luke took him out.
He killed my Rancor.
That begs the question, what happened to Jabba's son?
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe he appeared in I have to look that up and have an answer for people next week. Maybe he appeared in a comic or somewhere down the line, and maybe
should make a sitcom.
The Star Wars Wikipedia. Maybe he's out there somewhere. Sitcom about Jabba's son.
Yeah. Jabba's son living in the suburbs. I don't know. It's like, oh, bring me the mail. Ho, 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 ho.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, he has some weird shit,
That could be,
Yeah.
And I don't even know I don't even know how to follow that up.
You can't. It's just,
Jabba's son
yeah.
in a sitcom. But the Star Wars: The Clone Wars, man. This movie kicked off the show, and we got 5 great seasons that showed on the Cartoon Network, and it was really only kind of a lot of it was not really canceled because it didn't do well. It canceled because of the pending sale at the time for to Disney. We know that now. At the time, Cartoon Network used the excuse that the show was too expensive, blah blah blah, and then at the time, Filoni and people mentioned that there were 6 or 7 other episodes that were an animatronic stage that never got finished, and we all wondered why. Then about a year or so later, guess what? Disney's buying Star Wars. Now we know why they canceled it.
Yeah,
and of course they were able to retain the rights and get them back and from the Cartoon Network and everything, and were able to do the lost episodes on Netflix, which were originally a Netflix deal because Disney Plus didn't exist at the time. And we got those, what was that, about 7 or 8 episodes in the lost season? I can't remember right.
Yeah.
And then we got the final season a couple of years ago on Disney Plus that gave us about another 8 or 9 episodes. And those were some of the best episodes ever made, those final ones. We got answers to what happened to Ahsoka and Darth Maul during Revenge of the Sith. We got answers to how Qui-Gon Jinn became a Force ghost. A lot of answers were in those Clone Wars episodes if you haven't seen them and you're wondering some stories about Star Wars. And of course, we were introduced to Ahsoka Tano throughout this all and watched her character grow. And then she would show up again in Star Wars Rebels a few years later. Rebels aired before the final season of Clone Wars, but y'all know what I mean. Yeah. And then now she's got her own live action show on Disney Plus with a few more episodes ago. And it's cool, man. After the Clone Wars was over, I thought that was it for Star Wars, and then Disney bought them, and now we're getting all these really cool stories. And I've said this before, I know I sound like a broken record. Just give me all the Star Wars. I'm not one of those fans that's going to complain or bitch about too much. I might say I don't like something as much, but very rarely do I ever knock Star Wars too hard. I enjoy it. It's my favorite universe. And, even though I didn't like Andor all that much, I'm not going to knock it. And I'll still watch season 2 when it comes out, mostly because those last 3 episodes were so good that I got to see what happens next.
A lot of buildup.
I mean, we know Cassian ends up on, was it Corellia or not Corellia or on Coruscant? Mm-hmm. Was it Coruscant at the beginning of Rogue One? I can't remember.
Thought it was Coruscant.
Yeah, and he
definitely one of those sea planets.
Joining Jyn Erso and dying in a fiery explosion on a beach. So we know
not a bad way to go. Fire explosion. Yeah.
So we know what's going to happen to him. I'll still watch it. But I'm glad we finally got here with Ahsoka, and it's finally airing, and I can't wait till next Tuesday night to watch the next episode. And I think it's cool that they are releasing them on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock our time, because when you do the midnight streaming thing, you got different people watching different times. Now it's going to air at night. It kind of becomes an event like regular television because most of your friends are going to probably watch it that night. So I think it's kind of cool that they're doing that. But Star Wars: The Clone Wars is a good animated film. Ahsoka now airing on Disney Plus. Watch it if you have not already.
Yeah, dude, get into it.
So we roll into September, and we're going to kick things off with a pretty fun Western movie. Maybe not I'd say it's a classic, but maybe not a classic in the sense of The Good and the Bad and the Ugly or Once Upon a Time in the West or the true all-time classics. It's more
Rio Bravo.
Yeah, it's more of a guilty pleasure modern classic. I think it's fair to say, and it stars Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, and Lou Diamond Phillips, and that is in 1988's Young Guns.
Can't go north because Murphy's got men coming out of Fort Sumner. He can't go south because he's got Brady coming in. East is no good because he's got John Kinney coming up now.
Let's dance.
Regulators! Let's settle up!
Those are just boys. Ain't one of them over 21. We don't have a lot of fun now.
All I see are hired thieves.
Get off my property.
You were supposed to serve 11 warrants and expose the ring. Instead, you went out on a rampage.
Get ready for hell.
Law don't talk like that. Objection, Your Honor.
The governor's revoked your deputization powers. You're now wanted by the legitimate law as well as those outside the law. You're being hunted by troops.
Bonnie is believed to be the captain of a deputized gang.
Billy the Kid, huh?
The governor's put a $200 bounty on your head.
Ain't easy having pals.
This movie tells the story of Billy the Kid and his posse as they rage terror against the Old West in the early or late 1800s, early 1900s. And this has always been a fun, guilty pleasure Western movie, you know. Maybe it doesn't tell history to the truest sense of the word, but you can't help but sit back and just watch this movie with a grin, you know. It's very 80s feel to it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a fun movie, you know. Emilio Estevez is fun as Billy the Kid, and it's been a while since I've watched this. I'm kind of looking forward to rewatching it, talking about it on the show next week.
I remember liking Emilio Estevez in the movie, and I can't wait to watch it either. I think it's going to be a fun revisit, retrospective, and you know we're going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it'll be a good kickoff to September as we do some fun movies and get ready for Halloween horrors and our closing out and getting ready to close out the year with a bunch of good movies. So it'll be fun. But until then, next time, the RebelRadioPodcast.com is your website for all your Rebel Radio needs, and all the app links are there, as always, and our social media. And look for that to follow us so you don't miss a thing. And as always, we thank everybody for listening and supporting us. And that's all we've got this week. So until next time, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
Remember, as always, just
go there and do it.